Take my NetGeo cable. NetGeo cable. Where is it? Not here, not here. Right here. Hi, I'm Marta and this is NotEnoughTECH. Let's talk about two-factor authentications today. Now you probably know two-factor authentication, especially if you use Gmail account for your email. It will let you assign two-factor authentication and display additional security information on your mobile device. So when you're trying to log in from a new computer, you'll receive a prompt on your mobile device asking you to confirm this action. In a similar fashion, we can actually apply this to NodeRED, but not to log into the NodeRED, but to control the messages. 99% of the time, when you have an action on your NodeRED server, you have a trigger, and the trigger sends the message straight away to cause an action. But for certain actions, you might want to deploy the two-factor authentication. Let me show this with an example. This is a NetGeo power cable, and I'm going to talk about these cables a little bit later on in the next video because they're quite cool. But for now, all I need you to know that I've linked one of those cables to my computer so I could turn it on and off. And I know what you're thinking, it's a terrible idea, I'm risking corruption of my files, I can delete the progress, and especially that I have a dashboard button which is very easy to hit. I can accidentally power cycle my computer, and that's not good. Thankfully, I have two-factor authentication deployed for this automation, which means when I hit the reset button, a two-factor authentication message is being sent to my mobile device. Once the two-factor authentication message is received, I can act on it, so I can allow or decline the request, or I can wait for the message to expire. When the message is expired, it can automatically allow the requests, or you can automatically set it to decline the request, so you are fully in control of whatever happens next. And this is a brilliant example on how to prevent accidental power loss of your computer. In the same way, you can display extra confirmations for actions like opening garage doors when using geofences. Those are prone to mistakes, and having a manual oversight, it's a very good idea. Now this is done obviously with the NetGeo power cables, but you can deploy this to anything else. You can interrupt a flow in any given stage of your automation. So let's take a look at the NodeRED and how it works exactly. So this is the NodeRED, and usually when you're sending a payload from one node to another, whether it's issued automatically or whether it's issued by an inject node, you have to do is press the button, right, and you've got that available, and it's being sent from one node to another. Now, with thanks to the two-factor authentication, you can change this behavior. So if I deploy this, open my configuration page, I can set the timeout to, let's say, 30 seconds. I'm going to send it to my phone, which is visible on here on the side. That's a Mi 9, Xiaomi Mi 9. Then I'm going to configure the title, text, path, and ID. Once this is done, I can redeploy it. And now what's going to happen is, because I've set the default behavior to false, it means for the next 30 seconds, it will be waiting for me to approve this message. So when I press this, you'll see that I have the information on my screen on my Android device. There's a notification, timer, progress bar, and I can either allow or deny this action. Now, if I do not do anything within the next 15 seconds, this is going to time out and no information is going to be sent. So let's wait additional a couple of seconds to see this happen on the screen. And that's to be expected. I can change this behavior, I can set it to auto approve, but it's going to be obviously easier to show if I'm done. So you can see that there is a confirmation screen that tells you your actions has been automatically declined because I failed to authorize this. So let's try this again, and I'm actually going to action this. So I created the same notification. Again, I've got another 30 seconds to take action, and in this circumstance, I'm going to click on allow. So when I click on allow, it gives me a new notification saying your actions has been approved here at the bottom. I've got my message being passed over from one node to another. Obviously, you can change the behavior of this to your liking. So if I'm gonna deny this action, the message never gonna go through. I can change the timer to any seconds I want, and I can change the default behavior. So I can set it to auto approve or auto deny. So how does it work? Now let's take a look at that subflow instead, because it's a very clever thing. So inside the subflow, you're obviously going to see an input and output because this is going to be in between two nodes. Now, first of all, I'd like to point out this section of this subflow. It's basically sending a push to create that notification on your phone. And I'm borrowing heavily from this tutorial, which is Tasker Perfect Auto Notifications. Obviously, instead of this default message, I kind of modify this message to create a progress bar and update the relevant information. I'm gonna talk about this in detail in a second. Now going back, you'll see there is a one function node to set alarm, and there is a timer with a loop, 3-second loop. Obviously, how responsive it is, it's going to be dependent on how long is the loop. 3 seconds, I think it's a good time without spamming anything, and quite responsive. So in set alarm, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to reset the authentication status. So this is going to tell my subflow that there is a pending message. I'm waiting for the authorization for the time being, and I'm going to set alarm and send the current time. Current time obviously is time in milliseconds, and alarm is the time in milliseconds plus whatever seconds I've picked for alarm. So if I've got 60 seconds, that's going to be 60 seconds in the future. Now in the main node in here, you'll see there's a couple of things that's going to happen. There's three different branches. So one, it's going to be sending approved message, one's going to be declining, and one's going to be looping. And in a loop itself, there are another two outcomes, basically one for the timeout. If the timeout has not been reached, it's going to be a looping for another 3 seconds. And if the timeout has been reached, then it's going to be checking whether default message or default behavior should be to true or to false. This basically means that I've not replied to the authentication message in time, and I can't do anything with it. It's just going to issue a default behavior. So to receive this information, I'm basically using that push to my mobile device, and you'll see that I've modified that body. In that body, I'm kind of adding a couple of things. I want to know what is the default state and what is the status, and also a path and a notification ID. So each message is going to be different for each setup. To make this work and receive that, I'm going to use that path which is supplied by the body of the push. So that's very important, because this part you have to create on your own. When I receive that HTTP request, what I have to do is basically update the authentication status. The authentication status is going to be either approved or declined, and that's going to be a flow variable, which means on the next loop in here, it's going to change the authentication status and select either branch 1 or 2. If you don't do anything, it's going to be using the branch 3 until it times out. Now let's take a look at the Tasker. So let me open the Tasker for it, and you'll see that the profiles in here aren't complicated either. So first of all, I'm taking this our perfect notification and putting an extra spin, because I want to make sure the notification looks the way I want. So I'm responding to a auto remote event, which is 2FA. And then there's a couple of things that will happen. First of all, I'm using AutoTool.json because of that previous tutorial about the perfect notification. It's gonna translate all those body information, all that JSON template into my variables, and those variables are then used to create a message or create an Android notification, with exception of those two selected, notification ID and 2FA path. Those two I want to have as a global variables, because I'm going to use them in a second profile to retrieve and to update the current situation. So when the notification is created, there isn't anything special other than a couple of different fields being filled in, especially responsible for the chronometer, for the progress bar, etc. Now when that notification is created, this is with a progress bar filled to 100%, and then I'm starting to iterate. So this is my loop, and you'll see that this loop goes in here. Now I'm going to with each pass I'm going to calculate the elapsed and the remaining times. So they're gonna tell me in seconds how many seconds I've got left and how many seconds has passed. And thanks to those timers, I will be able to loop again and again. If you can see in here in go to at the bottom, I have those elapse if elapse is smaller than timer, and if 2FA reply equals false. That allows me to loop through it as long as I didn't reply it, because I needed to have an escape from this loop in case I will reply it. I wait on 190 milliseconds. You can set it to anything below 1 second really, but that basically is going to update your notification. And this is just a notification update. I don't do much in here, only the update the notification ID and update the progress. Now bear in mind that I've actually hard-coded the buttons, because the button commands would interrupt with perfect notifications because of how the labels and how the actually actions are being passed. So once it's done, then I have 2 more notifications, and those are confirming the status. One is triggered when the status has been, this is this one, when the status has been automatically updated, and one when I've actually action has been approved by me pressing a button. Now let's take a look at the second profile. And you will see that I'm using AutoApps command, which is triggered by the notification itself. So when I press approve or decline action, and I can trigger this simple task, setting that global variable to tell my system that I'm going to obviously reply to it or action it. And then I'm going to set that information from the button to my value false or true, and that value false or true is being sent back and fed back to my server. So you can see it in here. That's going to be sent back to this path. Now I've mentioned that I'm going to actually get the notification ID and get the path, because when I'm sending the request, I need that path to be issued at the end of this. So you'll see my password, the username, password, home server, and then path. This is the path for the post update. So once I've got all that, all I have to do is just submit my body, and in the body I have a JSON, which is authentication, and then variable AACOM, and make sure you select the trust and the certificate. If you want to know more about net your power cables and how I made this dashboard, that's gonna be a subject of my next video. And because I do not have a posting schedule, it's best to follow me on social media to get a notification when a new article or video is out, and you probably know how to use the YouTube. As for now guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'm going to see you in the next video. Take care, bye!